So yeah, we'll start with the bad and then go to the good. So I'm going to cover how thoughts and stress create disease in the body. We talked about it, just a couple of graphical slides, right? So we talked about it, right? Fight or flight mode and relaxation mode. We spoke about it sometime. So what happens in your stress? There is a stress response mode. This is what always when we are anxious, when we are worried, when we are stressed, we always are on that mode. So that means breathing rate high, blood pressure high, heart rate high, metabolism, blood sugar, everything is high. That is the state we are all in, and that is why we have all those things. And thinking goes down, creativity goes down, concentration goes down, immune system gets affected. That is a big thing with stress response. We'll talk about what is stress response. Whereas this is the area, this is the phase we should be in. All absolutely relaxed, right? That is called the rest, digest, repair, reproduce. So all those, that is the mode that we should be in ideally. And that is the healing mode. So your breath rate, blood pressure, heart rate, blood sugar all down. Whereas your creativity, concentration, immune system is a lot better. So fear, anger, doubt, uncertainty, confusion, anxiety, all that is fight or flight, right? And then this is more healing, right? Where you're calm, concentrated, loving, compassionate, right? So what happens is there are these 4 neurochemicals. I mean, some of you might have known some of these, right? Serotonin is a mood neurochemical. Dopamine is a happiness neurochemical. Oxytocin is a hug drug. When you're all hugging the tree, right? The feeling that you got was because of this hormone or because of the neurochemical flooding your body, right? It's the bonding hormone, right? So anytime you talk to a friend, you're so bonded with them, then this hormone is what is more flooded in your bed. And then endorphin is basically a painkiller, anything about happiness and things like that, right? So when you have that cup of coffee that you've been wanting to have, what gets in your blood is dopamine, right? When you get that phone call that you've been expecting and you get that, it's dopamine. But you don't, it's more serotonin. Why? What happened? You become moody, right? So that is one. And then there is another neurochemical, I mean, rightfully coined as Anandamide, right? It's like that Satchidananda molecule, they call that bliss molecule. So it is basically the absolute bliss you feel sometime in deep meditation, right? So it's sometime more, orgasmic, the orgasmic bliss that you get in deep meditation. It's absolute bliss. And a lot of people long for it, right? Most of the Kundalini practices border on that, right? So it is normal in deep meditation. Sometimes you sit 15 minutes, you just get very high, intense bliss, intense happiness. So that's when that happens, right? And so these are the neurochemicals. So what happens is, so this is the stress response. Typically what happens, anytime you have a thought here in your brain, this is part of your brain. So anytime you have a thought with attaching negative emotion, it releases a bad neurochemical, right? And the bad neurochemicals are things like cortisol, ACTH. Cortisol, I'm sure all of you are aware. So cortisol and CRH are the bad neurochemicals. So they flood, and they are stress hormones. They are the stress neurochemicals. They go and affect your endocrine system, depending on what type of emotion it is. You get thyroid issues, you get heart issues, you get digestion issues, right? So a lot more. And then you have respiratory issues, right? Skin issues, all that stuff. The relaxation response is the opposite of it. I just want to show you this is the process, right? Body is a protein producing factory. So everything is protein, right? From your color of your skin to color of your hair to digestive enzymes to the way your muscles are shaped, everything is built of proteins. Now, this process shows how your thoughts influence your proteins, right? So the moment you have a thought, the neural network, neurons in your brain fire, and then they generate those chemicals, those neurochemicals, right? And they send a signal to the different cells. The cells ultimately the cells do the DNA selection, and then they produce the type of protein, right? If the stressful thought produces weaker stressful neurochemicals, and they produce weaker proteins, right? Whereas if you allow it to heal, it will always be the good neurochemicals, and they induce healing, right? So ultimately, the proteins result in the health of the body. So again, there's a huge field called epigenetics, right? Initially people thought BP, heart, cardiac issues, sugar are all hereditary, right? They're caused because of genes. My parents or my grandparents have it, then I will get it, right? But increasing research has showed it's not the case. You might carry the genes, but stress triggers the genes, right? And even if you don't have the genes, stress can trigger some of those issues as well, right? So this is what, so our entire proteins are the way we create. The other day we talked about energy fields, right? This is more the matter part of it, the material part of it, right? Okay, so that's what I wanted to cover, more the bad news in terms of your thoughts create your disease. Any disease that you have, any pain that you have. So we saw how the energy fields reflected, and we also think how thoughts really create that biochemically, right, neurochemically. And this one is just a different stage from a picture, right? Parasympathetic state, meditation, that is what is healing state. Deep sleep allows us our parasympathetic nervous system to be active. Whereas more often than time, we are always in that flight or flight mode. So that is how it is. And neutral is a different part. If you look at it, very similar. And Prithvi talked about alpha waves, beta waves, right? So that's what gets you into the parasympathetic. That's what the beginning of meditation. As you get into meditation, that's what happens. A lot of healing happens, right? So quickly, I want to cover the good part, right? The good news is all your brains have changed in the last 7 days for the better. And your body as well, right? Because of the meditation, because of the silence. So you are probably thinking a lot less of stressful thoughts from the prior week, right? But internally, what happens to the brain in meditation, right? So this, some of you might have remember this from the biology class. So there are parts of it that are associated with seeing, touching, hearing, right? And then there is more the motor control, motion, movement problem. And these are more the balance and coordination, right? Remember okay, so the reason we call mindfulness, is because it exercises a lot, all the parts of the brain. Remember we had this 4 parts of a mind. What are the 4 parts of the mind? Mano, buddhi, chitta, ahamkara, right? So it's the sensory mind, the intellect, the ego mind or emotional mind, and then the chitta, the consciousness, right? So that's all mind. So in this case, only if you are completely aware of all those, you'll be able to prevent this. If you look at it, it has everything, right? It has emotion, it has thought, it has action, and it is also has feeling. So all the 4 different parts of it, and then most of the thoughts come from the consciousness, right? Similarly here, it exercises all different parts of the brain. For example, the coffee mindfulness that I was speaking yesterday, right? So it applies to any type of mindful eating, like you keep saying, right? So there is visual of the food, right? There is touch, whether hot, cold, the different texture. So all that is part of the touch part of it. And then you hear, you're chewing the food or the crackle of the popped, right, or a chips, that's what happens, right? And then your movement, the way you chew, the motor control. So it uses all parts of the brain. But unfortunately, we are not aware of it. We are not conscious of it. We're always thinking. So thinking is more only one part of the brain. When you're thinking always, when you're kind of having your food, it exercises only the prefrontal cortex, which is your thinking brain, right? Always keep thinking. And then there is a limbic function we'll talk about. So how does it develop, right? So different people, depending on the predominant activity that they do, different parts of the brain are big. For example, dancers develop more mass in part of the brain that manages proprioception. So this part. This is more the motor control. Because speech is also here. Motor control, right? So what do dancers do? They completely need to have a sense of space, right? Sense of movement. Right? They're completely aware. So for them, that part of the brain develops a lot more because they've been practicing that, right? And then we had one sports person here, Kebbedoddi champion, right? So for him, it's more about that movement plus a sense of where things are. Some of them will know exactly where the next move is going to be, right? So that is all from your subconscious programming, right? You're able to subconsciously figure out where the opponent is going to come in. If you're thinking, then nothing happens there. So for them, some parts of this part of the brain will absolutely be there. Audio, right? I'm sure you also hear, you also get trained on hearing the movements of the opponent, right? So these things will all be, as they continue to train, those parts of the brain will continue to grow well. So when in mindfulness, the whole idea is all parts of your brain work in unison. That's what happens in meditation as well. As you continue deep into meditation, the blood flow, blood supply across all these parts get regulated. Instead of it just in one part of it, it gets regulated in deep meditation. So that's where you are aware as well as attentive, right? And we saw mind creates the brain. In fact, there's one article that we put up on Pyramid Valley blog as well. Does the brain create the mind or the mind create the brain? The mind creates the brain. Why? Because if I'm thinking too much, that part of the brain increases, right? If I'm not thinking anything, but I'm doing some activity related to something, then that part of the brain increases. And obviously your thoughts and emotions click here. And so this is the, okay, I'll just skip here. Okay, so that is the cortex part. Then this is the culprit. This is the villain for us. This is the pain body. This is called the limbic system or the limbic brain. This part, amygdala, is responsible for the emotion, right? And then there is some memory as well. So these two are the what always causes to be in the past, right? So all memories come from here. So this is like a physical representation of the mano, buddhi, chitta, ahankara, right? So this is your emotional body or the emotional brain. So anything that has to do with emotion getting added to thought arises from the upper cortex, neocortex. Emotions and feelings occur from the limbic system. So what happens in meditation? So the stress response, I think we've already got through. I'll just click here. Yeah. Okay, so so I'll just so that to be more graphic here, right? So as I said, stress causes the incorrect type of proteins to be created. So that results in body systems, healing and immune system going down. Number two, you lose your cool, you're not able to think well, right? So you get angry suddenly, you don't know what to do. So that again, it impairs blood circulation to the right parts of the brain. And then we talked about it, indigestion problems, right? Because of stress. And then this is very common. All of us carry stress in some part of the body. I'm hoping some of the pain got reduced over the last 6 days, right? So the way it works is, what happens, the moment you start getting angry, you constrict your muscles, right? That is one of the things. So you either constrict your muscles at the back or your shoulder. Your breathing gets erratic. When you continuously doing that, you get shoulder pain, back pain. Most of the shoulder pain, back pain, sciatic pain is all because of stress. So once people get into this 21-day meditation, we've seen a lot of results. Once people start becoming conscious of their breathing, a lot of the stress gets removed, right? So this is one. So quickly, so there is this research finding again, Japanese research finding where they had two sets of people. One set of people, they made them attend a boring lecture. The other set of people, they had them watch a comedy show, a movie, right? And then both sets of people were blood sugar patients. So they measured their glucose levels, right? They measured their different enzyme levels as well. Before the show. Both were almost the same. They recorded all that. So they go through a 1 hour boring lecture versus 1 hour comedy show. And so the people who were attending the comedy show were laughing all through, right? They were in that state of producing better emotions, right? They were not in pain. Whereas the people listening to boring lecture, they were probably stressed and they were adding a lot more stress to them, right? So at the end of it, they measured the blood sugar levels. So the blood sugar levels of the people who were laughing for that 1 hour increased only half that much as the other set of people. Nothing else. Just laughing versus not laughing, right? And then the researchers went further because they thought that's because they are laughing, right? There's a lot of muscle movement, right? Because of the muscle movement, a lot of energy gets spent, and it is possible that the glucose levels were altered just because of that. But then they went and looked at the gene alteration. Remember the process that we saw? Thought to neurochemicals to gene expression. So they looked at gene expression. The laughing group altered 23 gene expressions that regulate the generation of blood glucose, right? So they had that better enzyme, better molecules being produced just because they were in that particular state of mind, compared to people who are just watching a boring lecture. The point here is our state of mind influences even without meditation, right? So our state of mind influences the genes that we produce, the proteins that we produce, the enzymes that we produce. Clear? So finally, this is again from the book called Mind to Matter. So there is research study that was done on one person, one skeptical person. One person was very skeptical about meditation and mindfulness. So he was I think he was a journalist. So he did 8 weeks of mindfulness meditation alongside being with nature, all the silence and everything, right? So at the end of 8 weeks, these are the results that the researchers documented. 22.8% increase in the the part of the brain responsible for emotional regulation. What was that? That was this amygdala, this one, right? So the part of your brain that regulates emotions becomes thicker, so it's able to handle emotions much better, right? And enhanced brain response time, better memory, increased cognitive powers, and improved behavioral skills, right? So brain response time, why? Because I'm having fewer thoughts. I'm able to respond faster. There's only one thought or two thoughts that I get, I'm able to respond faster. A more relaxed and energy efficient brain, because your brain is not firing on all cylinders. One part of the brain firing these waves, and then the other part of the brain in different ways, right? The entire brain is working efficiently. And all these changes in the brain happen in just 8 weeks. And then again, as you see, no drugs, surgery, supplements, just mindfulness meditation. Being mindful, their mindfulness meditation, breath meditation, plus all the mindfulness activities. That is all, right? And this is what that book also shows, the different parts of the brain. So this is that amygdala we talked about, emotional part of the brain. So this is the prefrontal cortex, increases response time, right? And then this increases healing and immunity. So people have documented and shown, right? Meditation, mindfulness meditation or being mindful, really there is changes in the brain, there is changes in the body due to your gene expression and neurochemicals. And what is it when we say emotional regulation? What do we mean? So these are some of the things. Typically, we get affected, or these are some of the thoughts that give us the emotions, right? Getting triggered by coworkers at your job, annoying things your spouse or partner says or does, like my driving experience, right? Problematic behavior of your children, we get annoyed, right? So all that now goes through a very structured process. Earlier it was more reactive, now it is a lot more responsive. Winning or losing at games or conflicts with others. Earlier it used to be bothering someone, right? Now post this, when your emotional regulation happened, you know exactly winning and losing is not part of the problem. What politicians say and do, okay. The way your parents think and what they say, other people's opinions that clash with yours. So yesterday we talked about attachment, right? Attachment to ideas. So all this goes through this process. You're a lot more aware of those. That is because there is a change in the brain, and because of that, this cycle, you're a lot more aware of this cycle. All right. So meditation helps you master your emotions. Very similar slide. So quickly, we covered a lot of this. Again, this is usually from a slide from our 21-day course. So what does meditation bring you in your daily life? So we saw just changes in the brain. We saw changes in the body, right? What does it bring you daily in life? First thing is calming. It calms your mind. That is what it is. All of you agree? Yes. So having been through 6 days, 7 days, definitely at some point you would have felt the calming of the mind. Next is internally, all of you have kickstarted a healing process, right? In fact, there is another study I don't put here. Just in one session of meditation, even beginners, even novices have changed the expression of some of their genes. There is research documented, right? So some of the good chemical producing genes got activated, whereas the bad chemical producing genes got subdued. In just one sitting meditation, you've been through so many hours of sessions, right? Meditation sessions, obviously, it kind of improves a lot more. So healing, emotional cleansing happens. Again, we saw earlier, right? So all your deep-rooted emotions, like what Manisha was talking about, again, that amygdala slowly gets cleared up with a lot of fear, a lot of other emotion factors. And then, so once this has happened, you're able to see clearly. I talked about synchronicities yesterday, right? You're able to see things as they are, not with the color of glass that you are wearing, right? If I'm wearing a glass of mistrust, right, I doubt everything and everybody. That is how I see the world. If I wear the glass of fear, right, I'm always fearful of anything new. Right? That is how we look at it. Or I'm always fearful of the future. So now, that is because you're not seeing the world clearly, the way things are. So this allows, because it frees up a lot of emotions, it allows you to see things as they are and appropriately respond, take the right action, instead of basing your action on something that you perceive. And then the fifth part of it is intuition, right? As I said, as your mind started calming down, you're connected to your intuition, you'll be more acting spontaneously, right? A lot more spontaneity comes, your inner intelligence opens up. And then the sixth state is more non-attachment. I mean, it's okay over time as you continue doing meditation, because your emotional regulation, that whole emotional regulation thing starts working well. So you're not too affected by, okay, I have coffee or not, I don't have coffee, I'm okay, right? I'm able to do this work or that work, I'm okay. If I'm called last, like someone was mentioning, right? If people don't pay attention to you, earlier you must have been worried, right? Oh my God, why are people not paying attention? Now it doesn't matter, because I know who I am, and then it doesn't. So equanimity is a state where you are okay with things being right, things being wrong, okay with good, okay with bad. You're not too attached to a particular thing. And then finally, like I showed the wave example, you start feeling a sense of oneness, right? And that is what most enlightened people are like that, right? So you start a feeling of oneness, and you don't need to go to the gurus and the text to find enlightened people, right? There will be a lot of people in your own families, right? Some of our grandparents, some of our parents or our uncles, everyone, some of them, they will not be wearing those guru dress or even doing meditation, right? You know they are equanimous. You know, for them, this is okay, that is okay. Sometimes we mistake them to be very disinterested. What is he doing? Nothing, he's not doing anything in the world, right? So that is where, but equanimity, they're okay to do when there is a need for action, right? And they're okay with either extreme, right? Sometimes we tend to ignore them. They are okay with it. Sometimes people pay attention. They are okay with it, right? So this is what happens. This meditation brings, what meditation gets you in daily life, this is what it is, right? But each of these, again, as I put here, it is not a sequence, right? Suddenly you might feel intuitive. Suddenly you get that spontaneous sparks, right? Suddenly you might be seeing things differently. The same conversation with your colleague, when you go back, it will be a lot different from what you had, right? At least for the first 2-3 days, till you allow your mind to be in a state. So continuous practice of meditation results in incremental and increasing transformation. Over time, you'll probably be spending more time here compared to that. So that's how meditation works. Okay, so meditation doesn't change your state that you feel at the moment, right? It changes the permanent characteristics or personality traits. As you continue to do meditation, so your behavior starts changing. You'll see that. And then as your behavior starts changing, people around you start noticing it.